Guys, welcome to Selective Preparation for Power Mathematical Reasoning for Test 33. Okay, so let's just jump straight in. Question 1 reads, Aaron put 256.5 milliliters of water per second into a fish tank so that the fish tank on the right is filled with water to a depth of 20.8 centimeters. How much time would be taken to fill this amount? Okay, to answer this question, we first need to address the formula involved. So guys, I want you to remember this. Volume equals, no, not volume, time taken to fill up something is equal to volume over the rate, or T equals to V over R. Okay? So volume, right, refers, or we usually put it in units of centimeters cubed, which will be in this case, and the rate would be something is usually also in cubic centimeters per second. So rate is the amount per time, which is why once we divide both these things, they cancel out to give us time. But if that's a bit too confusing, just remember it as time taken to fill up a something equals to volume over rate. Okay, what is the volume in this question? The volume is, we don't know. Because the depth is given, we want to know 20.8 depth, and so we need to find it out. How do we do that? 20.8 times, what's the width? 28.5 times the length, which is 90. Answer should be close to 53,000, or at least if you do it in your head, it should be 20.5 times 90. We should get 53,352 cubic centimeters, okay, because it's volume. Next, if that's the case, what is the rate? Let's find the rate. Rate is apparently 256.5 milliliters per second. How do we convert that to cubic centimeters? Why do we need to do that first of all? Well, we need to make sure that whenever we're dividing, it has to be of the same units. Okay, how do we do that? Well, we refer to the unit exchange of 1 milliliter equal to 1 cubic centimeters. Okay, and if you didn't know that, you should write that down, or at least remember it, because it'll be very important. Since 1 milliliter is equal to 1 cubic centimeters, then this rate is also 256.5 cubic centimeters per second. And so, guys, the question's done, okay, because we just need to sub it in. 52 over 256.5, and your answer gives you 208 seconds, which is option B. Okay, so just make sure you remember this equation. Next question. The H-shaped figure on the right covers 300 square centimeters. What is the perimeter of the H-shaped figure? When it says perimeter, guys, we need to know the what? The side length of the shape. What is the shape? A square. Okay, and so this given area is actually a huge clue. Why? Because if we're able to find the each area of the square, right, we can just find the each side of the square as well, the length of the side, because all sides of the square are equal, isn't it? So if we just times two sides, two of the same thing, we should get the area. So let's try that. 300 divided by, how many squares are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And we do that to give us 25 squared centimeters of, and this is the area of each square. Okay, if that's the area of each square, then correspondingly each side length must be 5 centimeters. Because if we think about it, if the area is 25, it must be 5 times 5 that gave us that, because it's a square and each side is the same, right? So if that's the case, now we can just find out the perimeter by finding out how many sides we have. So let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. Okay, so I've just counted 26 sides, each with a length of 5 centimeters. So together, this should give us 130 centimeters, which is option C. Okay, guys? Okay guys, let's move on to the next question. Cylinder jam tins of height 12 centimeters and diameter 7 centimeters are placed in a carton length of 42 centimeters, width 35, and height 48. How many tins will the carton hold? Okay, so for this question, it would be a lot more helpful to actually draw it out. Okay, I say this because, let me just draw that a bit larger. I say this because it's hard for us to imagine a 3D shape in our head, isn't it? Okay, so because that's the case, we want to draw things up. So let's start. So we know that each of these cylinder jam tins have a height of 12 centimeters and a diameter of 7. So if we're putting them in boxes, obviously the corners wouldn't be met. Okay, and then we have our height of this diameter, but so far we don't know how many of these fit. I'm just drawing these just so you guys can see. So we know height to be 12, diameter, which is, remember, one line passing through the center of the circle to the other side of the circumference of the side, is 12 centimeters. 7 centimeters, okay? Now, if that's 7 centimeters, how many would we fit this way? Okay? Well, we know that the width of the container is how much? 35 centimeters. So if the diameter, guys, is 7 centimeters, how many would fit on the width end, or the width length? It would be 35 divided by 7, which is how many? 5 of them. Okay? Next, how many of them would fit longitudinally or lengthwise? What's the length? It says length of 42 centimeters, meaning that 42 divided by 7 would give us how many cylinders could fit in, which is 6. Okay, now how many, you guys can't forget the height, because remember this is a 3D shape, and which is also why I encourage you to draw it. How many would fit height wise? Well, we know height is 48, and we know that the length of the cylinder is 12. So accordingly, 48 divided by 12 would fit in, which is 4 of them. So if 48 divided by 12 is 4, then 4 of them fits in the height wise. This is the height. And 6, remember, was the length. And this was your length, height, width. Okay, so if 5 of them fit width, 6 of them fit length, and 4 height, we just need to times them all together, okay, to find out how many there are. So what is 5 times 6 times 4? What do we get? It is 120 cylinders, which is option D. Next question. Richard climbed at a constant rate at 2 o'clock, he was 1/6 of the way up. At 4 o'clock, he was 3/4 of the way up. What fraction had he climbed at 3 o'clock? So you'd notice that we are asked at 3 o'clock, which is halfway between 2 and 4. Given that he is climbing up at a constant rate, it must mean that the difference between 3/4 and 1/6 would give us the total distance the fraction of distance he traveled up during that 2 hours. Which was, how do we do this again, guys? To subtract fractions, we need the same denominator. So I'm going to times 3 here, times 3, because the common multiple, lowest common multiple, is 12. We do that, what do we get? 9 over 12 minus 2 over 12, which is 7 over 12. So in 2 hours, I traveled 7 over 12. So in 1 hour, because remember, 3 o'clock is only 1 hour after 2. In 1 hour then, I must have traveled 7 over 24th of the distance. Okay? But, is that the answer? No, you'll find that there's no option here. Why? Because this distance is actually distance from 2 to 3 p.m. Okay? Not the whole climbing action. Okay? So what do we need to do? Because at 2 o'clock, he already traveled 1/6 of the way up. That must mean from that 1/6 he traveled a further 7 over 24th of the distance. And that's why we add it up. So 6 into, how many times does 6 fit into 24? 4 times, so we times that to numerator and denominator, so we get 11 over 24. Okay, which is option C. Alright guys, let's move on to the next question. This is a probability question, and it states, find the probability. Assume that the spinner is separated into equal sections. You roll a cube which has the numbers 2, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 12 on it. You then spin a spinner which has 6 sections, as it mentioned earlier. The letters on the spinner are J, C, D, B, G, and F. Pick 5 and end F, okay? And you guys will notice that I emphasize this word and, okay? In probability, guys, probability and the word and would always translate to multiplication, okay? Because we are choosing two events one at a time, and we're trying to find out the probability of doing both, okay? We have to multiply the probability of each probability together to find the probability together of doing both A and B. Okay, and that's why and refers to multiplications. Now, first of all then, what is the probability of choosing the number 5? Okay, out of the die. Let's see. Roller cube has how many numbers on it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So out of the 6 numbers, how many are 5? Only 1. Next, what is the probability of choosing 5? Not 5, F. How many letters are there? J, C, D, B, G, F. Also 6, and out of them, only one of them is F. Great. If that's the case, to have both of these at once, then probability of both is going to be 1 over 6 times 1 over 6, which is going to be 1 over 36. And that's why option A is C. Okay, guys? So just remember this section. That's all you need to know. Finally, let's go into our key points from this test. So, key point number 1, time equals to volume over rate, or T equals to V over R. So obviously we did this from the very first question. Okay. Next point, when in doubt, draw it out. And this I pull from this cylinder question. Remember how we drew out our box, and then correspondingly try to find out how many cylinders fit into these boxes. Okay, so when you're in doubt, just draw it out. Next and final point, and in probability means multiplication, and that was from the previous question that we just did. Okay, and as long as you guys understand this, most of the probability questions would be quite straightforward. And yeah guys, that was it for today. Hopefully you guys learned something.